Hi, welcome to Exploring the Illusion of Free Will. My name is George Ortega, and today we're going to be talking about what we really could do if we had a free will. Because I think by doing this, we'll kind of understand that, a bit more clearly that we don't, that, free will is an illusion. Okay, before I do that, I just want to briefly, as I do each show, or most shows, go through what we mean when we say we have a free will. Basically, we mean that whatever we want to do, whatever we want to think, whatever we want to feel, all this stuff is up to us. It isn't up to anything that's not under our conscious control. That's what the term free will means. And clearly, when you understand, first of all, well, I'm going to start with the unconscious explanation. When you understand that we have an unconscious that's the storehouse of everything, all our memories, our data, our experiences, and then when you understand that our conscious mind isn't even aware of that database, then you understand that, well, then that means that the decision making or processing of that data has to also be at the level of the unconscious. That's a very clear and easy way to understand that free will must be impossible, according to how we define free will as being basically a conscious will. So basically we have an unconscious will that's not in our control. Or the second way to understand it, that's perhaps more intuitive for some people, is that anytime we make any kind of decision, we do anything, any act, there's a reason or a cause for that act. Because everything has to have a cause. And so if there's a cause for, let's say, our decision, there has to be cause for that cause. And then there has to be a cause for that cause, and a cause for that cause. And then you have this causal regression, causes stretching back in time to before we were born, before the planet was created, before presumably the known universe was created, 13.8 billion years ago, whatever. Okay. And the other thing is, the reason this is important is because, sure, thinking that we have a free will may make us feel good about ourselves in a way, but it's certainly not necessary because, to the extent we shift from a free to a causal will perspective, instead of feeling prideful or boastful about what we do, we feel grateful. We feel grateful that the universe has allowed us to do something good, and we can feel good through that gratitude rather than through the wrong attribution of that good to ourselves. And naturally, conversely, we will tend to blame ourselves and each other when things don't go right, and invariably, they will not. That's kind of what life is in so many ways about. And so, to the extent that we move from a free to a causal perspective, instead of blaming ourselves and each other, which no longer makes any sense, we might want to blame the universe. The universe may not have a free will, who knows, but at least a proper understanding of human will maintains that cohesiveness, that unity, that it maintains our relationships, the quality of our relationships. Okay, and we can do this, certainly we can do that through forgiveness. When people do wrong, forgive them. But I think a stronger inducement for behavior would probably be that it makes sense than that it's the right thing to do. And actually, in the case of understanding that our wills are causal, that we don't really have a good reason to blame, to hold accountable, in a sense, essentially accountable, anyone for anything, then that's both, that allows us to behave more compassionately with it, which is a good, it's like forgiveness, and it makes sense. So you have both the component of being good and making sense as you interact with whomever you feel, otherwise would have been doing something wrong. Okay. So, all right, now let's get to this, because this is very cool. Okay. So now we're going to think of what would having a free will allow us to do. Think about this. Because the point of this show is that if we can't do these things, if we can understand that we can't do these things, why we can't do these things, then it will be much clearer to understand that we don't have a free will. Okay, so can we feel as happy as we want to? I mean, because if we had a free will, we should be able to feel as happy as we want to, but we can't. At any given time, about 25% of us are mildly depressed. The average level of happiness here in the United States is only about 70%. Throughout the world, it's lower. Think about it. If we had a free will, we could be happy, we could choose, we could freely will ourselves to be happy every moment of every day. Because that's what a free will would mean. Nothing, because you'd say to yourself, that's what you want. Or at the very least, with any kind of situation where, let's say, you're the only agent or actor, let's say you're alone or working or doing something. If no other person, in other words, is involved. So clearly in those kinds of situations, you could override anything, hunger, thirst, need, whatever it is, all right? So again, if we had a free will, we could do that because there would be nothing stopping us, but obviously there's a lot stopping us. We just the thoughts that come to us are generally, happiness inducing, because we are generally happy. We're not nearly as happy as we could be, but, we're fortunate that we've been compelled or we've been hardwired to seek pleasure and avoid pain. But because we're not perfectly blissed out, because we're not perfectly happy, that's a very clear explanation of why we don't have a free will. Okay. If we had a free will, we could be as good as we would want to be. St. Paul, writing in Romans, wrote that, I don't understand this. I want to do what's right, but sometimes I feel I can't. And that will happen to us a lot, especially with those of when we're around the people we love the most, our spouse, children, friends, family. I mean, clearly, when you see the rate of divorce, first marriages, I think it's about 50%, and just the fact that we don't have completely harmonious relations with the people we love and care most about. We do get angry with them. They get angry with us. Think about it. If we had a free will, we would be really good. We would be perfectly good to especially to those we love the most, because nothing would be preventing us from being completely good. That's the thing. So free will means that, you can be however you want, you can think whatever you want, you can feel whatever you want. Naturally, we can't, Okay. We can, if we had a free will, we could think whatever thoughts we would want to think. And this is actually very related to the issue of happiness, because happiness, to a great extent, is related to what we're thinking, how we're perceiving things, how we're interpreting our experience. So it's kind of like always seeing the glass as half full or overflowing. It would be, we could think whatever we would want at any given time. So meaning that, if we could think whatever we would want, we could obviously say whatever we would want. And think of, for example, more people I think are afraid of public speaking than dying. Now, if we could think whatever we wanted to, nobody'd be afraid of public speaking, because a person can say to themselves, well, no, I don't want to be afraid, I don't want to think scary thoughts. I don't want to experience or feel fear, while doing that. And they would do that, but obviously we can't. We're at the hands of fate. Some of us are fortunate, whatever, to. I'm not so fortunate. The cameras don't make me so nervous, but people make me more nervous in a way. But yeah. Again, because we cannot think our thoughts, we do not have a free will. Okay. All right. Guys, you gotta keep it down there. I'm getting distracted. Um, okay. Um, if we had a free will, we could remember what we wanted to at will. Um, Memory, think about it. If we had a free will, anything we ever experienced, anything we ever learned, we could remember. We could be sure that we remembered. So like anytime we needed to study, let's say for a test, we would be sure that we could recall those memories at will because nothing would be stopping us. Okay? That's why we don't have a free will. We can't. What happens, what basically happens is that since the data and the processing is at the level of the unconscious, then we basically remember what our unconscious wants us to remember. And what it wants us to forget, we forget. Okay. Sometimes we want to understand something. Let's say we're in school, we have some kind of math, whatever. Math has these principles. You've got to understand them. Math, whatever. And sometimes we're slower to understand. Sometimes we're faster to understand. Sometimes we can't understand it all. Sometimes the level of complexity of whatever we're trying to understand is beyond our experience and mental capabilities. So let's think about it. If we had a free will, well, I can choose to understand this. I can choose to somebody's trying to explain something, a book's trying to explain something. I can choose to get it. That's what a free will would mean. Obviously, we can't do that. We understand what we're fated to understand. We're fortunate to understand generally. Because for example, our IQ. There's different kinds of intelligence is about 80% genetic, and then the other 20% is generally, a lot of it's developmental. But anyway, the idea is, if we had a free will, we could certainly understand anything we wanted to understand. We have habits. We have habitual ways of doing things, habitual thought patterns, habitual responses to situations. Some of them work for us, some of us work against us. For example, if we have a habit of, God forbid, smoking or drinking or something, and this is before either would, let's say, become an actual addiction, which is like physiological, and that just adds so much more complexity to it. But if we had a free will, we wouldn't be under the control of our habits. We could just form new habits of will at will. We could end the habits that we found less than helpful to us, and then just cultivate and develop the habits that we want. And think about it, these habits, overeating, my God, if we had a free will, there wouldn't be an overweight person on the planet because people would say, well, it's not healthy to be overweight. Overweightness, to a great extent, is, simply the habit of overindulging or the habit of, let's say, kind of responding to emotions or inner experience through food rather than through something else. It's a habit. So obviously, that's clear that if we had a free will, we can control habits regardless of what they were. Okay. The idea is if we had a free will, we could control our responses to anything and everything. But then, all right, now that we've kind of like gone through different ways that we can't be as happy as we want to. We can't be as good as we want to. We can't think whatever thoughts we want to. We can't remember what we want to. We can't understand what we want to. Now, I think you might get, why we don't have a free will. And that's important. I want to kind of like segue into the mechanics of this. What's actually happening, why we don't have a free will. Certainly through these explanations you can see why, but let's see what's actually going on. Our conscious mind can only focus on perhaps one thing at a time, maybe a few. It may actually just be one. Like for example, right now I'm looking at the camera. I'm also aware of the clock on to the left of me, and but I'm not sure I can be aware of those two things at once. It's hard to say. But notwithstanding, I don't think our conscious mind could be, for example, aware of 10 things at once. Okay, so let's say consider any decision you want to make about anything. First, there's going to be a moral component to it. Is it the right thing to do? And so the brain has to like sift through the information of our moral principles and experiences and memories, and what we've learned, is it a thing that's going to be advantageous to us? Kind of like the pleasure imperative, the hedonic imperative. Is it going to be in our best interest? So we have to sift through a lot of memories, have I done this before? Have I done something like this before? Have I thought? Have I decided? So we've got to sift through all those memories. And now think about it. Our conscious mind, again, can only focus on one thing at a time. Whereas, like, to make a decision, we've got to be, like, focusing on the principles and even, like, our basic decision-making process, the rules of our decision-making process. What do we consider first, the morality or the hedonic component? Clearly, we have no experience, no conscious experience of our mind sifting through that vast database that is in our unconscious. Again, when we're making any decision, we have, millions of memories? I don't know, maybe billions, who knows? Have a lot of data that is in the unconscious, okay? Because again, like the point that's very important to remember is that because our conscious mind can only focus on a few things at a time at most, all this stuff has to be at the level of the unconscious. And when you think about it, again, by definition, the unconscious means that our conscious mind isn't aware of it. I'm not aware of all the stuff that's in me. You're not aware of all the memories that you have, consciously in real time at any given moment to make a decision. So then we reach the second component. We have the memories, the data at the unconscious level, and if the conscious mind does not have access to the unconscious in real time, and cannot consider more than a few things at once, then clearly and obviously every decision that we make is also being made at the level of the unconscious. In other words, it's the unconscious that has access to all of the contents in the unconscious. It's the only part of our brain that can have consciousness of that data. Again, by definition, it's unconscious. It's a whole, it's pretty interesting to think. So all right, so the idea is if we had a free will, we could consciously think and feel and do and say whatever we wanted, regardless of any influence from our unconscious. Now think about it. It just doesn't make sense. That's like sometimes I've done shows that that kind of describe the whole term free will as incoherent. It's like internally inconsistent. You know, free. Our will is free. What is it free from? What is it free of? Is it free from reason? You know, is it free from logic? Is it free? No, no. And because like, is it free from causality? You know, because like, again, we have the unconscious kind of explanation, but we also have, you know, everything has a cause. So if we have a decision that makes that there's a cause or causes, whatever, I mean, depending on how you want to look at it, if there are reasons, if there's a causal chain that, you know, I guess ends at our decision and starts who knows when, then clearly our wills are not free from that. You know, nothing's free from that. Causality is what governs. Okay, this is important. You know, again, some people claim that, you know, of course I have a free will. It's so obvious. I experience my will as being free. But no. The more accurate description of what we feel is we feel ourselves making a decision. We don't feel it being free from the unconscious. We don't feel it being free from causality. We infer these things. We infer them wrongly. So yeah, okay. Okay, we've got about 5 minutes left. I think no, I'm going to stay with this. I was going to go on to like some considerations, but this is very important. Again, what I mean, if we had a free will, what good would it be if we couldn't be as happy as we want it to be, or if we couldn't be as good as we want it to be, or if we couldn't think what do we want it to think? You know, that's not a free will. That is not a free will. So, all right, so who are we? We are instruments of the causal past. The universe, I don't know if it's been around forever or, you know, because that kind of like transcends reason, you know, which is an interesting point. Some aspects of reality transcend reason. To my thinking, there are four. Just the fact that seems to be beyond reason whether the universe is eternal or whether it had a beginning, you know, because both seem kind of like, you know, if we think, well, how could it be eternal? It must have started at some time. Then we say, well, how could it have started at some time? There must have been something before. Or another thing that transcends logic is whether our universe is infinite or finite. Sometimes you hear astrophysicists say, well, the universe contains a certain amount of stars. That's only, you know, what they're really saying is the known universe. You know, as far as our telescopes could reach, that's as many stars as we've been able to detect, energy, whatever. So, but from the logical standpoint, you know, like our logic cannot grasp the universe extending outward, you know, forever, you know, out in space, and it can't grasp it all of a sudden stopping someplace, because, you know, you say, wait a minute, there's an edge to the universe, what's on the other side? And, you know, sometimes there's this kind of like, people try to use the analogy of a Mobius strip, or that, you know, that kind of like the outermost part of the universe would wrap itself around and become the innermost part. It's illogical. That's, you know, that's not going to solve the problem. Anyway, so that's the second one, and the other two are well, actually, it was like yeah, time going backward, time going forward, infinity going outward, and the other cool one that like most people really haven't thought about that much, and it also transcends reason. You know, we used to think a long time ago that that an atom was the smallest particle, and then we, you know, right now we're at like, you know, quarks and leptons and all these. I don't know. Some of them are theoretical particles. Who knows? But the idea is as our technology evolves, we find that we can detect things that are smaller and smaller, and it seems logically that things would constantly get smaller and smaller. Now there may be one essential particle, in the universe, but according to reason, according to logic, you could theoretically zoom in on that particle and just perceive a tiny part of even that particle, and then zoom in on that. So anyway, what I'm trying to say is, these four kinds of things in reality transcend logic. But to my thinking, they're the only things that transcend logic. In other words, sometimes people will try to claim that, well, this free will that we have, it transcends logic. It's kind of like, it's supernatural. It can't be, It's just, because even if we were to define our decisions as supernatural, they would be occurring at a certain precise point in the timeline. There's an arrow of time that goes from the past to the present to the future. It's never been demonstrated to go in reverse. And so yeah, you can see that. All right, I'm running out of time here. All right, I hope I think this has been a really good show. I think this has been an important show. I'm going to summarize again. If we had a free will, we could feel as happy as we would want to. We would be as good as we would want to. We would think whatever thoughts we wanted to. We would remember whatever we want to. And obviously we can't. So, all right. Now, again, I'm going to try. I've worked a lot, and I think I've explained why we don't have a free will, pretty comprehensively. I'm going to devote more shows to kind of like why this is important, but I'm going to stay with this because I know many of you still don't get it, but you will. All right, well, thanks for watching, and I'll see you again soon.